Welcome back to Doc's Hot Shop and Forge. So today we're going to try out a commercially made hammer eye drift. This is from BSL Anvils in Victoria. It's a Chinese drop forged 1045. Comes as forged, I believe. I'm not sure if it's been heat treated. I will treat it as if it's heat treated. But the first thing we've got to do, we're going to grind out the flash from the forging and get this as forged surface as clean as we can. I also received a axe eye drift, which is going to need a similar amount of attention just to get rid of all of that flash and grind marks and surface imperfections. I'm not 100% sold on the profile, but I can work with that. We'll give them a go and see how they hold up. For the hammer, we'll be using this piece of 1045. It is 80mm long. It is 42mm wide, so it's 1.5 inches square by 2.5 inches, 2 3/4 inches, give or take a little bit. And we're going to aim for, I don't know, a small cross peen or something. I don't know, I haven't quite figured it out yet. This is more to test out this. But before we get to getting the metal hot, we have to do some grinding. So let's do that. Oh, bonus project, I have that was loud. I have a tap holder to make for the turning shop, so I'll need to neck down this and then upset this out so I can bore in a 38mm socket for a larger button die. That's a side project, so there won't be much on that. Anyway, let's get to the grinders. The smoother you can get this, the easier it'll do its job, and the less likely you'll have problems getting it out and risks of it being broken in use. Okay, some pointers or points on axe eye drifts. You want this as parallel as you can be with this nice taper. So this one doesn't have enough distal taper, so it's too uniform and really does need to be reforged. But this one has got a good amount of taper, reasonably parallel, so that you just, how do I describe this? When you're putting the handle in, your wedge is in this axis, so you don't end up with any flaring in this axis unless you put multiple wedges in, which is not recommended for axe hafting. So you really need this as parallel as you can so you get as good a fit along the length of the handle in the eye. I have a feeling that this has got too much of this taper. It's got a reasonable amount of distal taper. But yeah, it needs to be more uniform in width. So less of this, but keeping this. And the profile being very squarish needs a little bit of work. But anyway, so Blair, there are some thoughts on the axe eye drift. I won't grind on this one. Happy to send it back. But yeah, I think that there's too much of this taper for it to be a functional axe eye drift. You can end up with too much of a hourglass eye in the X and the Y axis, where really you only want it in the one axis, which is in this plane. So you want this taper. You don't really need this taper at all. Some thoughts. And if you're going to get these finished up in China, ask them if they could do the grinding. It's a fair bit of grinding for a final product. But anyway, I'm going to get some steel hot and make a hammer. There are some thoughts. About halfway. Start the drifting process. Just to open it up a little bit, I'm going to use one of my old shorties. that's a first. See. Close. A little bit further. Alright, let's see how these work. It's at least allowing me to straighten up the eye. See how far out that eye had gotten. Sorry you missed it, but there it goes. Let's try and get this thing back on centre, because we're quite a bit off. So, let's correct this asymmetry. We have to drive some of this down so we stretch it out a bit. Alright. Okay. We're getting there, getting back on centre. It's worse on this side. There's still a reasonable amount of heat in it. Alright, so I need to raise a little bit. Find some better times for this. I don't think there's much more I can do. Okay. I need to tidy up that eye. We've got the hammer ready to heat treat. It's turned out to be a nice little 600 gram Frenchie. So, nice little French crossbeam. A little bit stylized, but nonetheless. 600 grams, and that's ready for heat treat. So we're going to get the forge lit, and as it comes up to temperature, we'll touch mark it, serial number it, and add the weight in grams. So, let's get the forge lit. Mark the weight. This also counts as a bit of a normalizing. careful, and we're going to quench it in water because this is 1045. It's now had a bit of a soak. Ideally I'd have an electric furnace to heat this up to 845, hold for an hour and then quench. I don't. So I'm holding it at around about 850, waiting for it to be more or less uniform colour, and then we're going to quench, which is now. So good. You probably watched me do this before. Basically I just heat and then we watch the faces for the colours to run. I think I'm starting to see a little bit of good. So don't mind that, I'm going to dump it into the cold water just for the rest of it so I don't soften the bacon. I'm just going to have the straw there. Yeah, that's distinctly gone. So, I think it's time to cool that off. Yep, time to cool. So, got a nice light bronze pale straw. That means that the wall of the eye will have gotten up to about 400 degrees, which should, Celsius that is, which should be quite nice and soft and spring in, so resist cracking quite nicely. This hammer is going up on my Etsy very shortly. It will be sold unhandled. So if you want a hammer, 600 gram, nice little French peen. Takes us to the end of that. So the drift has held up quite well. Yes, it's mushrooming a bit, but that is because I ended up having to use it as a punch to drive out the slug in the end. As far as the axe eye drift, I think I'll be returning this unused, simply because for my use of punches or drifts for axe making, this taper is too extreme. It leaves you with an axe eye that has too narrow a waist in the middle, which means when the handle comes through, you've got a gap at either end that you've got to fill somehow. And you don't put a cross wedge in an axe, you put a lengthwise wedge in the eye. So this isn't really going to work all that well. The distal taper in this axe is actually quite appropriate. It's just these sides up near the working edge area should be more parallel, and then a bit of a sail kind of shape. I understand why it's the way it is, because it's simple to manufacture, but it's just going to leave an inferior eye, which is a problem. So Blair, I'm going to return this one to you, mate, and please take the comments as constructive criticism, not as knocking your product. But that's just because I've made quite a few axes, and drifts like this don't generally produce a good eye anyway. The hammer eye drift is great, really love it. Good profile, good shape, nice taper to it, works well. Even if you end up having to use it as a punch, it still drives through well. There's no distortion in the tip, it hasn't bent at all, it's great. Couldn't be happier with that one. The little 600 gram modified Frenchie that we've knocked out will go up on my Etsy in the next few hours. So if you're after a little hammer just for light work, this one is ready to go. It will go out without a handle. Please note the eye is ever so slightly on skew. You can't really see it from the top, from the outboard side, but it is a little more apparent on the other side, which is the side I had the most trouble with anyway. So that's where I'm going to leave off. If you've enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up. Feel free to share on social media, and if you haven't already subscribed, I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button. When you do, don't forget, ring the notification bell. So get out to your shop, have some fun, but do stay safe, and I'll catch you for the next one.